The goal of this video is to show you how to name organic molecules called alkanes, which are made up of only carbons and hydrogens and single bonds, how to name them using the prefixes that you see here, using the idea of counting the longest chain of carbons, and then naming anything that's attached to that longest chain of carbons by looking at this section, other attachments. What's the prefix for 8? And 8 is oct. And we're going to have the suffix ane because they are. And I look at the attachments, and if you see just a CH3, that's an alkyl group called methyl. So whenever you see just a CH3, look at the prefixes here. 9 is known. And I look for a CH2CH3, and I see it right here. And that has the name ethyl, because there's a CH2 attached to a CH. You could probably guess just from geometry what 5 is going to be. 5 is pent. Sheet here, we can attach other things besides carbon-containing compounds. We can attach chlorine, bromine, iodine. This is just a small sampling of what could be attached. I'm going to go back. If I were going to name, try to get a little bigger, if I were going to try to name this molecule in number 1, I would first try to count the carbons so that I get the longest continuous chain. So the first way you could count it would be to count across like that, and you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You would have 8. Another way you could count it would be like that, starting up here and going over. That would also give you 8. And then the third way you could count it would be like this, where you count 1, 2, 3. Well, I want the way that gives me the longest chain. So if you get that same number 2 different ways, then you just have to pick one way. And so I'm going to highlight this as my longest chain of carbons, and when we counted them we got 8, so I go back and I look at single bonded carbon and hydrogen containing compounds. So once I've found my main chain and named it, so this would be octane, anything that I haven't highlighted I'm going to circle. That means I need to name that attachment. So I go back here to a chain of carbons, you put methyl, and we don't want any spaces in between the two words. Then I need to identify which carbon of my 8 that methyl group is attached to. So I could count this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or I could count this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to count the way that gives me the lowest number. So if I number this way, I see that on the second one there is a methyl octane, or there's a methyl group. So I'm going to put the number 2 and a dash out front. That's kind of a lot of space. We always separate numbers and letters in organic names by using a dash. So it'd be 2-methyl octane. Well, let's try a few more. This one I could count it all the way across and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I could count it like this and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or I could count it like this and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to count the way that gives me the longest, so I'm going to highlight So I'm going to highlight this. I can figure out how to do that. Struggling here. There we go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. So 9, if I go back, I'm going to start it with the prefix, and it's like we write the names backwards. So I start over here, known, ane is the suffix. Oops, that's nonane. This has not been named yet. So I go back to my, so in front of nonane, I'm going to put ethyl. And then if I count left to right, I get ethyl coming off of carbon 1, 2, 3, 4. If I count the other direction, I would get the ethyl group attached to carbon number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to pick the way that gives me the smaller number. So it happened on these two that I counted both of them all straight across to get my prefix for my number of carbons. Not always going to work that way. If you look at this one, I can count it straight across and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can count it like here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or I can count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I want to highlight that way. So there's 9 carbons. They don't have to be in a straight line, they just have to be in a continuous chain. And so 9 I already know from the previous problem is non, so it's nonane again. And notice I have the same group attached as I did in number 2. That is called an ethyl group. And now I have to number this chain and figure out which number carbon on the highlighted chain is that ethyl group attached to. So if I start here, I get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can count backwards and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Either way I go, it's going to be a 5. So I'm going to end up having a 5-ethyl nonane. So the longest continuous chain of carbons, it might not necessarily be in a straight line. Number 4, if I count number 4 like this, I get a continuous chain of 5 carbons. So this will be the parent chain. If you go back to the first page, go back, it's going to be called pentane. This has not been named yet, and I know from number 1 that a CH3 group is called a methyl group. And what carbon on the highlighted chain is it coming off of? Either way you count, you get a 3. Always pick the smaller number, but if we count both ways and get the same number, then we're going to pick a 3. Let's see. I'm going to skip down a little ways here. Try to find something a little different. How about number 7? So number 7, I count straight across. I could count straight across. I could count like that. I could count like that. Which way is going to give me the longest number? Probably straight across. Another 10. 10. So I look at the prefixes. The prefix for 10 carbons is decane. So we always come up with the end of our name. And by the way, the suffix can change, but if it's only carbons, hydrogens, and single bonds, then it's ane. Start throwing in double bonds, triple bonds, other elements, that suffix will change. Okay, so we've named this. Whoops. And now I have just this group, which you're going to use ethyl and methyl all the time. Anytime I see a CH2 attached to a CH3, I know it's ethyl. And what carbon from my highlighted chain, which we call the parent chain, is it on? Either way we count. Well, this way is 5, this way is 6. So I want to count it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get 5-ethyl decane. I hope that gives you a good idea of how to name a simple alkane. Notice that we can attach other things from our more time. Come back and forth and see if there might be one more we could try. How about number 10? Looks like straight across is going to be the longest way. So if I count straight across, is 8. 8 has a prefix of oct. Again, my CH3 group, so that's going to be methyl, except I don't want this dash in here. It's going to be all one word, methyl octane. And which carbon is the CH3 attachment coming off of the third one? So that's how you name a simple hydrocarbon with only single bonds and only carbon-containing groups attached. Attachments, wrong way. And sorry to keep chart.